So this last weekend, I had the opportunity to participate in an event instead of simply just run one. Travis at FaB Foundry was running his event midday on a Sunday, which meant I was able to actually negotiate with the wife for some time away. And not only was it a good time, but it ended very well for myself. So today, let's recap the FaB Foundry Blitz Skirmish event. And, spoiler alert, sometimes even the blind squirrel finds a cold foil, or something like that. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my flesh and blood friends. Welcome back to Dice Commando, and go again, a fabulous cast, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today, I'm telling you about a skirmish I got to participate in last weekend over at FaB Foundry. Now, that should be a very familiar name to many of you on the channel. Travis, who runs FaB Foundry, and I, we've been partners growing the game together in the area since basically the beginning. And, you know, shout out to Travis. He does really good by his people, and we've been running the Commoner Crawl together. And again, should not be a surprise to many folks out there. But when I saw that his event was on a Sunday and I was able to go, I was like, okay, I want to go to Travis's event because he always throws great events. They'd reach great return to players, and everyone has a good time. It's a great atmosphere. And on top of that, it was my first time playing an event at his new shop, which is super cool. So you should go check it out if you're in the Portland area. And speaking of being in the Portland area, we have the Portland Calling coming up here in early November. More announcements to come soon and all of that stuff. But the website is up. It is available. You should go check it out and start booking those accommodations to come visit us here in lovely PDX in November when it will almost certainly be raining. But hey, there are other parts of the country and world that'll be snowing, so I guess that's an upgrade. But either way, come join us. It's going to be a great time, folks. So, I already kind of alluded to it. Let's just rip off the Band-Aid. I actually won this event. And this was a big deal to me, right? I mean, I made the jokes about blind nut finding a squirrel, which was kind of true, right? You have to have some things go your way if you win an event in Blitz. There's no beating around the bush on that one. But it was really nice to be able to do that because a lot of the time, to be able to get that recognition, right, of taking it down. Because a lot of the time, a lot of the flack I've taken over the years of being a content creator is, when you're a content creator first, a lot of times people assume that you don't know how to play the game very well. I've taken a lot of that flack through the years. I'm going to give a shout out. I didn't talk to him first, but DM Armada has shared this sentiment as well, right? Steven has shared the sentiment as well that sometimes people are like, well, you don't know how to play the game. And he's like, well, yes, I do. And I feel you, bro. And that's why it's really nice to get this, right? So it was really nice to be able to log that as kind of a little bit of validation that I actually know what I'm talking about. So that was pretty nice. And I did so on Briar, who I've been talking about for a while now, is a very good hero. So what I want to do today is run through not just my event, primarily my event, but I want to recap the event, but I will obviously do it through my perspective as a player and not a TO. And there was another really cool thing that happened to me this weekend is I finally crossed over the 1K XP mark. Now, to a lot of you out there, you're like, what? You've been playing for 5 years. How are you not across 1K? Well, because I spend a large amount of my time TOing, and when I spend a whole day away from my family, well, I don't go to 5 other events the same weekend. That's just the reality of a mature adult's life, right? Where you have other things going on. That's not taking away anything from anyone else. That's not how I meant that. But people have commitments, and you can't just go to every armory in town every week, right? That's the way it is. So for me, I crossed 1K this weekend with that major 8-0 run, getting 6 multiplier, and it logged in. So anyway, let's with all the horn tooting and all that aside, let's get into it. So the day started at, again, Travis's event at FaB Foundry, 10 a.m. in the morning, which I do love the 10 a.m. start time. It's nice when you own your own LGS. You can create your own start times. I would love to start events a little earlier, but I am limited by the store I TO at. And Travis is like, screw it. We're starting at 10 a.m. Let's get this be done, right? So 20 players showed up that day for his Season 9 skirmish. What you see over here is the breakdown for Zen, which was actually, obviously Zen was the most there, but it wasn't as many as I expected, considering that what you need to understand about Travis and FaB Foundry is he's kind of the pinnacle of competitive flesh and blood within Portland, right? He kind of flies that banner. His store kind of flies that banner. So I was very surprised that it wasn't like, I thought it was going to be like 50% Zen when I showed up that day. But hey, shout out to people playing what they want on Blitz. What I did not have on my bingo card that morning was running into 3 Yoji. Well, I didn't run into 3 Yojis, to be clear. I ran into 2 of them, but 3 Yojis in the room. Did not have that on my bingo card. 2 Rhinars makes complete sense. 2 Victors make complete sense. 2 Levia makes a whole bunch of sense, considering that less than 24 hours before, we had run the event at Gungai in which Archer Taylor won. So that makes sense. People going on that. Plus, she's really good. And then we had a whole bunch of one-ofs. ASC times 1, Benji times 1, 1 Blaze, 1 Briar, myself, 1 Emperor, 1 Kayo, Berserker Runt. Right? That's not a KO. That's not an armed KO. That's a Berserker Runt. And then 1 Lexi. So a very interesting field there. So what I want to do now then, I'll just go ahead and kind of cut forward and show you what the top 8 was. And you will notice some very familiar handwriting on this. It's just Travis printed it out, and then for my own picture, I just kind of wrote it in, and I don't think Travis cared, but I wrote it in. So at the end of Swiss, I was 5-0 on Briar. Jude Cornett, who is local player, I think it's very fair to say he's the best player in the Portland. 0 question. Was on Yoji. I ran into him round 5. It's just a really bad matchup for Yoji. If we're comparing myself against Jude as players, he's a better player. There's no question about it, right? But I had the better matchup, and I made some very smart decisions in that match, which I want to talk about. So I was able to eke that one out. Parker, who I ended up running into the final, was on Zen. Mitch Tillery was on Blaze, who I also played. Kevin, who I also played in the top 8, was on Rhinar. Dylan Dart, always an amazing player, was on Zen. Thank goodness I dodged Dylan, because Dylan is a great player. Kobe Fan was on the Emperor. And then Anthony Galleran, DC team member who I ran up against twice, was on Zen as well. So, and then actually you can see it's kind of funny, because if you see Sean there at the 9, and he actually I'll throw up the photo. He actually photobombed as Bubble Boy kind of in the back, so you can see the players there on the top 8. But Sean was actually on Yoji as well, and him and Jude are buddies, and they kind of showed up with a spoiler, I guess, if you want to call it that, on the Yoji, which was an interesting call. They both did very well in the day, right? Obviously going 4-1 and then 3-2 for the bubble. So my day started off with, of course, team-on-team violence. So who do I get paired up with first? Stephen Morgan. Of course I do, right? Stephen Morgan, you've seen in many, 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 many videos on the Dice Commander channel with us playing back and forth. He was the first one in the area to have Blaze, got it overnight shipped from the UK. But what does he run? Yoji. So he gets paired up to me round 1 with Yoji, which is an exceedingly bad matchup for Yoji with me on Briar. And I was just able to do the chip thing, right? And he's doing health gain and stuff like that. But when I'm throwing a whole bunch of wide stuff and I'm playing very conservatively and arsenaling CMH and making sure I've got a nice wide turn to go on, it's just, as long as I think that's a good way to say it, right? The Yoji versus Briar match is really Briar's match to lose, I think, is a fair statement there, as opposed to Yoji's to lose, right? It's really on me as the Briar player to make a mistake in that match, okay? Doesn't mean that things can't still go Yoji's way. They certainly can, absolutely can. But it's definitely favored to Briar, and I'd have to make a mistake to lose it. Second round, I run up against Mitch, who was on Blaze. Okay, so this match, so Mitch is also really amazing. Like, I ran up against a lot of really good players today too, or on that day. Mitch is a really good player. He's been playing Kano for ever. As long as I've known. Well, he's played other heroes too, because we've known each other for like 4 or 5 years. But Mitch has been there he's been on the Wizards for a long time, so he knew what he was doing. I played super conservatively. I give a lot of shout out to him. He sat down with Levia and Costello, which meant that he was able to, so I was actually de-incentivized to throw Arcane at him, which was an interesting little chess match on kind of the me slow playing it and keeping a blue in hand the whole time. I think there was at least 3 or 4 turns where I was like, no arsenal, because I had a blue in hand, and I was like, I don't know, right? With my breakdown in my deck, like, I don't know what it's going to look like. So I was just like, pass priority. And of course, whenever one of my auras pops, like embodiment on beginning of my turn for having dealt damage, he gets to respond to that. Now I've got a potentially full hand at that point, but maybe not because it's on my turn. Very interesting little chess match. I was able to get that eked out. What ended up happening at the end, and this was just an experience thing, it's not an intelligence thing on him at all because he's a very good player. He was basically digging on a sonic boom. He was trying to opt and dig for another sonic boom, but he had actually defended with it earlier. So at the end, I was like, he was doing a whole bunch of stuff, and I was like, I don't know what card's coming at me. So I was like expecting to get smacked for like 400 because that's the way wizards work, right? But at the end, it just fizzled out, and I was able to slide it through for the win. But it was a great game, and Mitch had me shaking. Plus, we were sitting in the corner, and we were getting blown on by AC, and we were both super cold, so maybe I was shaking for that too, but I think it was mostly Mitch. Third round was Sean Maloney, more DC team on DC team violence, so he was playing Victor. And I was really worried about this match as well. He hit the vast majority of his clashes as well. I think there was one he had to bury. Oh, I do know what one big thing was. Early on, he missed a clash, and it was on a trounce, and he had to decide whether to pop his undefended shield. And he did, and he hit. It was the right play, I believe, but it cost him net 3 health, right, overall, because he had to pop an undefended shield. So I think that was a big deal. But in the end, I got kind of lucky in this game too. Right, but Sean played very well. He did hit his clashes, but I was able to just kind of I did the Arsenal CMH kind of slow play it thing. Just came over. I was able to avoid the spinals, so I didn't have to worry about. I was able to avoid the spinals and the choke slam, so I wasn't have to worry about it. All right, then came Anthony. Anthony, also DC team member. Not only is he DC team member, but Anthony won our most recent DC team tournament that we do online every now and then, like twice a year roughly. It was a spring tournament. He won it. Very, very, very good player, very accomplished player. Sit down to him with versus Den, and I'm like, well, this should be fun. And Anthony went very conservative on this one. This was my favorite game of the day because we were both playing very conservative is not quite the right word because we're both pretty aggressive decks, right? But he sat down with no AB, and he played pretty conservatively trying to set up his thing. And it allowed me to just chip. And then I could play defensively and just keep chipping away with no AB, right? Grasp something, CMH, whatever, right? You get the idea. And at the end, it was very close. I mean, I think in terms of score, I think I was like maybe 6-0 or something like that, which I guess is like 25%. But in terms of like game, it was very close. Moving on then to the last round, sit down versus Jude. And I'm like, well, this is going to be rough. In my opinion, I really played this very well. I was counting his pitch stack. What I had done, I had sighted in my lunging press. I sighted in one lunging press because I didn't want to have two because I didn't want him to know it was in there. And then early on, I was able to bury it with an Easter egg so that I didn't pitch it, so he didn't see it, so I knew it was on the bottom. And just to be blunt, that was what did it. Okay, I'd done, again, it's not a great matchup for Yoji because I can keep doing the things. I slow played. I was able to set up a nice CMH turn, was able to use my armor to block. He had a really good one where he came with a choke slam, and I was like, well, I know you've just cycled. I know your pummel's right there. So I, got rid of a lot of cards and just came in, but I was able to set up and then go. And then I was able to kind of close it out with the lunging press. And I know that that's a very, very, very long game summarized in a short period. But I always really respect playing Jude because he's very good and he's a much better player than I am, right? But I was proud of myself and made some good decisions and was able to close it out. So then we cut to the top 8. Again, I'll go ahead and throw a picture of the top 8 up again. And who do I get paired up with? So congratulations, by the way. We put 4 DC team members in the top 4. Myself, Kevin, Dylan, and Anthony. You can see us all there, as well as, again, Bubble Boy in the back. Got a level Sean there. But that meant that I was paired up against Anthony. Now, I was first through Swiss, so I had initiative. I got to choose. And Anthony this time took AB, which I think in retrospect for him was a mistake. He took the gloves instead of the tiger swipe, and we both just went complete face in this game. I think it was over in 2.5 turns, right? Meaning that not all of us got 3 turns. So I think it was over in 2.5 turns. And, you know, the value that he lost not having that over the course of the game, I think is probably the difference in the game on his tigers. Maybe, maybe not. If I mean, again, this is me recollecting stuff from days ago in the moment, not recording it. But by and large, I think that was probably the difference in the game. And Anthony very well could have moved on beyond me. Next, of course, more DC team on DC team violence. I run up against Kevin. Kevin was on Medax Rhinar, and I do want to give a huge shout out to Kevin. So Kevin had top 8'd the day before the Gongai event. He was on a different deck. All right, so the day before he was on Briar. Today he was on Medax Rhinar, able to top 8 with 2 different decks in the same weekend. That's player skill right there, right? So shout out to Kevin on that. And this one was close, but it wasn't as close as the Anthony match, and things didn't quite go Kevin's way, fortunately for me, and I was able to sneak through that. And then huge shout out to Kevin, and I want to give this before we go into the description of final. Kevin stuck around, most people as they were getting out, they were leaving. Kevin stuck around and supported me for the final, which is up against Parker. Super good player. And this is a great story on this game because we were he was sat down with 0 AB, and we were trading tactically pretty well for 2 turns. And then his turn 3, he goes Art of War, draws into an Art of War. So he Zen transcends, right? So he transcends turn 0. So I'm like, well, that's not good, right? So he transcends turn 0. Then when I attack, he uses his headpiece, pulls the card. On this turn particularly, he then uses that to Zen thing. He pulls a aspect body red and then puts a tiger in his hand, which he uses to banish to his Art of War. Okay. Off of that, he draws another Art of War, which he then banishes the attack action that he drew, and then he dead draws. So as soon as he goes Art of War, I honestly, you probably can't see it with the mic, but I sit back in my chair and I'm like, well, I said, that's not good. And I just got lucky. He was able to dead draw, and with the math left, I just took a needle to the face. I took a needle to the face. I took the aspect to the face, so I took the 7 damage, and I just clapped back. And that's all she wrote. So when I made the joke about blind squirrel finding a nut, I just got lucky that he dead drew. I mean, to be fair, someone out there can probably do the stats of Art of Warring into Art of War on turn 3. On the other hand, he dead drew. So probably roughly the same math, but probably, again, I got lucky. Either way, that closed it out, and that ended the tournament. Now, that's all there is to say about that in terms of the story. Again, I want to give a huge shout out to Travis. Travis continually runs very good events. He's well known across Portland for running some of the best events in the area. I ended up walking away with 12 packs of prizing in addition to that, but yet everybody walked away with minimum 2 packs. I mean, Travis probably lost net money on the event. Probably. I mean, I don't know his finances, but point is, a lot of packs were given away, a lot of prizes were given away, random draws. You just have to really appreciate Skirmish season and what it brings to the stores, how freaking awesome it is, and how the stores appreciate that and how they build their own community through it. So again, huge shout out to Travis. Again, I want to really encourage you. I'll throw it up there again. If you're buying singles, if you're doing pre-orders through Rosetta, go use your LGS that supports you, right? People like Travis, people like Gongai Games, right? Use them. That's the lifeblood of this game, and it's really, really awesome. So anyway, if you were still here at this point, I'm in, 19 minutes in, I think, at this point. So thank you so much for watching. And, by the way, if you were looking for the Briar list, not that you're here at this point since there's no list below, I get it. but the Briar list is available to DC team members. I will actually be publishing that after Briar LLs, because that's what the DC team members get out of their thing. Sorry, that's just the way the world works. I will be publishing that video afterwards, but that is currently available and up for our DC team members. So go check that out. And everyone else, thanks for watching, and go Commando.